Black nurse and crisis rescues war vet with PTSD in diner. 24 hours later. You won't believe it. Tasha Owens never thought her lowest moment would make her a headline. Not that anyone would have noticed her that night. A black nurse, 32, burned out and invisible, sitting alone in a greasy diner after a 13-hour shift. She didn't come to be a hero. She came to be left alone, to rest her feet, drink something warm, and maybe, just maybe, not cry in public for once. But what she didn't know was this. Within 24 hours, the city would know her name. Her face would be on the news. And the man who burst into that diner screaming about war? He would change everything. It began at 3:08 a.m. The diner was quiet, lit in that sickly yellow glow that made everything feel just a little off. Rain tapped the windows, and the smell of scorched bacon clung to the booths. Tasha sat in a corner with her back to the wall, still in her scrubs, her name badge half torn from the strap. She hadn't eaten all day. The coffee in front of her was stale, but it was hot. That was enough. She scrolled through her phone. Overdue bills. A text from her landlord. A voicemail from the pharmacy reminding her about her mother's prescription, one she couldn't afford this week. Her chest felt tight. Her fingers trembled slightly as she locked the phone and set it down. She didn't see him come in. She heard him. The diner door slammed open like a gunshot. Tasha flinched, eyes darting up as the man stormed in, tall, wiry, soaked in sweat. He moved like a hunted animal, shoulders hunched, eyes wide, scanning the room as if he didn't recognize any of it. Then came the yelling. Get down. They're in the trees. Where's my rifle? He wasn't looking at anyone. His hands clenched and unclenched. His voice cracked, broken and frantic. People screamed. One man ducked under the table. A waitress dropped a tray of silverware. Someone shouted, call the cops. The man turned and dove behind a booth, knocking over chairs as he scrambled like he was under fire. He grabbed a ketchup bottle, threw it, and roared something about backup. Most people ran. Tasha didn't. Her body tensed, but not in fear and recognition. She'd seen this before. On the trauma floor. In VA psych units. On nights when veterans came in screaming, not from pain, but from memory. This man wasn't violent. He was trapped. PTSD, she thought. No one else was moving toward him. But she was. She stood slowly, hands visible, heartbeat steady. She heard a waitress hiss behind her, are you crazy? Maybe she was. Maybe walking toward a man screaming about enemies in the trees while holding a fork like a knife wasn't smart. But she knew what she was seeing. And more than anything, she knew what it felt like to break in public and have no one see the truth. Sir, she called gently, her voice smooth like she used with combative patience. Hey, you're safe. You're not there anymore. The man didn't react at first. He twitched, muttering something about a chopper going down. His eyes darted to her like he didn't believe she was real. Tasha took another step. She crouched, low, slow, no sudden moves. I'm Tasha. I'm a nurse, she said. I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to help. His breathing was sharp, shallow. Sweat dripped from his forehead. He clutched a fork in his right hand like it was a weapon. You're not in combat, she said, calmly. You're not overseas. You're in Atlanta. In a diner. It's the middle of the night, and you're safe. He blinked. Something shifted in his face. His shoulders sagged, just barely. My unit, he whispered. They're gone. Tasha nodded. But you're still here. And right now, you're safe. For a long second, he didn't move. Then, slowly, his hand opened. The fork clattered to the floor. Gasps echoed from behind the counter. The man collapsed into a booth, covering his face with both hands. His body shook with silent sobs. Tasha didn't hesitate. She slid in beside him and placed a hand on his back, gentle and firm. It's okay, she whispered. You're not alone. Red and blue lights flashed outside. The police had arrived. She stood, hands up, and approached them before they could barge in. She explained what happened in quick, clear words. One officer, young, thoughtful, nodded. The other looked uncertain, but kept his hand off his weapon. It took another 15 minutes before the man, David, she'd learned, was calm enough to speak clearly. The officers gently escorted him outside. But before he left, he turned to Tasha. I don't know what I would have done. She nodded. I do. That's why I stayed. He mouthed something else. Maybe thank you. Maybe I'm sorry. She couldn't hear. But she understood. The diner was silent again. A few patrons looked at her with awe. A couple with suspicion. One older man muttered something under his breath. Should have let the cops handle it. Tasha didn't care. She grabbed her bag, tossed some bills on the table, and walked out without another word. She wasn't looking for attention. She didn't even think what she did was all that brave. She just didn't know yet. The cameras had caught everything. And by the time the sun rose, the world was already watching. Tasha didn't sleep that night. Not that she really expected to. After everything, her body felt hollow, wired, like it had gone to war without armor. She sat on the edge of her bed, still in her scrubs, trying to process the diner, the man, the war veteran named David, and how close things had come to something worse. She didn't cry. Nurses learn how to hold that in. Especially black nurses. Especially ones like her who don't get the luxury of breaking down. But something was off the next morning. It began when her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. At first, she ignored it, assuming it was more debt collectors, or maybe the hospital calling to ask her to cover a shift again. But when it rang 5 times back-to-back, she checked. Tasha, is that you on the news? Girl, you're going viral. Like, viral. They're calling you the diner nurse. Turn on channel 5. Tasha blinked. Confused, she pulled up her TV and flipped to the news. And there it was. Grainy security camera footage from the diner played on a loop. Her figure in navy scrubs, calmly approaching a man hiding under a table, gently kneeling, talking, comforting. Headlines splashed across the bottom of the screen. Black nurse calms disruptive veteran in late-night PTSD episode. Diner hero defuses tense encounter without police force. Miracle moment caught on camera. Her mouth went dry. She watched herself on the screen like a stranger. The way she moved. The way her hands never shook. The way she touched David's back like she'd known him forever. The footage ended. Then came commentary. A panel of anchors debated whether the police would have escalated the situation had she not intervened. One called her the example of what humanity needs right now. Another warned people not to romanticize vigilante heroics. But then they mentioned something that made Tasha sit forward. Since the video went viral early this morning, one anchor said, a local veteran support group is asking for help identifying the nurse in the video. They want to thank her personally. And rumor has it, someone's offering a reward. Tasha's stomach flipped. Reward? She stood, stunned, just as her phone rang again, this time from an Atlanta area code she didn't recognize. Hello? She answered, cautiously. Miss Owens. A voice asked. Professional. Crisp. This is Angela Mills. I'm the outreach coordinator with the Homefront Project. We support returning combat veterans in crisis. Tasha's heart thudded. How did you get my number? There's been a lot of interest in locating you, Angela replied gently. The man you helped last night, David Whitmore, is one of our clients. He's alive because of you. Tasha didn't speak. Angela continued. David's family saw the footage this morning. They've been trying to find him for months. Your calmness, your bravery, it gave them a chance to bring him back. Tasha let out a shaky breath. I didn't do anything special. That's not what the world thinks, Angela said. And David doesn't think that either. He asked to see you. But that's entirely your choice. Tasha closed her eyes. She hadn't done it for recognition. She did it because no one else would. Because she understood what it meant to scream in public and be ignored. Because she knew how it felt to have the world call you dangerous when you're just in pain. But still, something stirred inside her. I'm not sure if I can, she whispered. My mom's sick. I'm working double shifts. And I'm tired. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Miss Owens, Angela said, her voice softening. I understand. But there's one more thing I should mention. A local anonymous donor, also a veteran, saw the footage and asked to cover a reward. Not a payment. A gift. They want to help you. They've offered $25,000 for your kindness. No strings attached. Tasha sat down hard on the edge of her bed. $25,000? That was almost a year of rent. That was her mom's medicine, her overdue bills, her freedom. Why would someone do that? She asked quietly. Because sometimes, Angela said, the right people notice. Even when you think no one's watching. Tasha stared out the window, watching the city wake up. Cars passed. Sirens screamed in the distance. But inside her apartment, everything was still. She didn't say yes. Not yet. But she also didn't hang up. Later that afternoon, Tasha walks into the hospital for her shift. She keeps her head down, hoping no one's seen the video. But as she walks past the front desk, someone claps. Then another. Nurses, orderlies, even Dr. Malik from ICU. They all rise and applaud. A few snap photos. Someone shouts, That's our girl. Tasha freezes, overwhelmed. A tear slips down her cheek, but just one. She smiles. She still doesn't feel like a hero. But maybe, just maybe, she doesn't feel invisible anymore. The third night after the diner incident, Tasha couldn't sleep again, but this time, it wasn't because of stress. It was the noise. Not from the street. Not from her mom's cough in the other room, but from the notifications. Her inbox was full. So were her DMs. Thousands of messages from strangers, veterans, nurses, single mothers, pastors, college kids. Some wrote long letters thanking her for being brave. Others sent Bible verses. A few said she saved their faith in humanity. But not all of it was kind. There were the trolls, too. The loud ones. One comment said she should have minded her business. Now she wants a medal for playing Florence Nightingale in a Waffle House. Another wrote, this was staged. No black woman would risk her life for a white vet. Wake up. Tasha clicked out. She didn't need that energy. But the posts kept coming. A YouTuber did a 10-minute commentary on her body language. A think piece titled, When Black Women Save the World, again, went viral on Medium. A local TV anchor reached out asking for an exclusive. Someone even created a fan page, Tasha the Nurse. She hadn't even agreed to go public. But the moment had made her public anyway. And yet, in the middle of all this noise, there was one thing that cut through it all. An email from David Whitmore. The subject line was simple. Thank you. The message was short. Tasha, I don't know how to say this right, but you saw me when no one else did. I was lost in that diner, and you pulled me back. I've been through therapy before, but no moment has ever grounded me like your voice did. My sister wants to meet you. So do I. No pressure. But you saved more than just one life that night. David. She stared at it for a long time. Then she did something she hadn't done in months. She opened her journal. She's sitting cross-legged on the couch. Her journal in her lap, the TV off. Her mom is sleeping in the back room. The place is quiet. She writes, I never wanted attention. I wanted peace. I wanted a job where I could do what I loved without drowning in bills. I wanted my mom to have a dignified life. I wanted rest. But now everyone sees me, and they don't see the tired. They don't see the nights I cried in the break room. They don't see how I still feel like I'm failing her, failing myself. I don't know what to do with this hero thing, but maybe I don't need to know. Maybe I just need to keep showing up. She closes the book, exhales, the kind of breath that feels like it's been waiting for years to come out. It's the next day. Tasha is on her lunch break when she gets called to the administrator's office. Her mind races. What now? Inside, the hospital director, Mrs. Linford, greets her with a tight smile. I know this has been overwhelming, Linford says, folding her hands. But we received a call from the board and from the governor's office. Tasha's eyes widen. They want to honor you, Linford continues. Not just for what you did in the diner, but for the years you've spent serving this hospital, your patients, this community. Tasha blinks. Honor me how? A feature in the city's upcoming Women of Impact campaign. A speaking opportunity. They also want to include you in a mental health initiative, if you're open to it. Tasha sits back, stunned. And the hospital? She asks slowly. How do you feel about it? Linford smiles. I think it's about time the world sees what we've all known. You're extraordinary, Tasha. And not just because of that night. Because of every day before it. Tasha doesn't know what to say. Her throat tightens. She nods once. I'll think about it. But somewhere deep inside her, something shifts. Not fame. Not pride. Just a realization. She's not invisible anymore. Tasha is walking down the cereal aisle in her hoodie, just trying to make it to the milk before someone recognizes her. A little girl stares at her from behind a cart. Maybe 8 years old. Wide-eyed. Holding her mother's hand. The girl whispers, Is that the lady who saved the man? Her mom looks over, notices Tasha, and smiles. Tasha just nods. The little girl walks up shyly. Are you a superhero? Tasha crouches to her level. No, baby. I'm just a nurse. The girl grins. That's even cooler. Tasha walks home from the store, dusk settling in. In her bag is milk, bread, and an envelope she didn't expect. It was left at her door. Inside, a handwritten card. No name. No return address. I saw what you did. For him. For us. You reminded the world what it means to care. Use this however you need. A fellow survivor. Folded inside the card. A check. $50,000. Tasha stares at it. Hands shaking. heart pounding. She sits on the front steps, not crying, not smiling, just breathing. And for the first time in a very long time, hope doesn't feel so far away. The weight of the envelope in her hands was heavier than any patient chart, not because of the paper or the ink, but because it represented something Tasha hadn't allowed herself to imagine for years: freedom. $50,000. The number burned in her mind as she sat on the worn steps of her building, the dust folding around her like a soft blanket. The city lights blinked on one by one, but inside, everything was quiet. No fanfare. No cameras. No crowds. Just her. The money could pay the hospital bills, buy her mom's medication, and cover rent for months. It could even, dare she think it, give her time to breathe. But it came with a question she wasn't ready to answer. What now? The next morning, Tasha's phone buzzed with messages from Angela Mills, the outreach coordinator she'd spoken to days ago. Have you thought about meeting David and his family yet? Tasha hesitated before typing back. Not yet. Angela's reply was gentle. Take your time. No pressure. But the question lingered, like a knot in her chest. Meeting David would mean stepping fully into the spotlight, the one she had tried to avoid but was now impossible to escape. At work, the weight of attention followed her like a shadow. Colleagues offered congratulations, but there were moments when their eyes flickered with pity or expectation, as if she was supposed to suddenly have all the answers to things she'd spent years just surviving. A nurse she trusted pulled her aside. Tasha, this could be your moment. Maybe even a stepping stone. Have you thought about advocacy? Speaking out for veterans, mental health? Your story is powerful. Tasha shrugged, uncertain. She wanted to help, yes, but was she ready to become a symbol? Or was she just a woman trying to get her life together? That evening, she sat across from her mother at the kitchen table. Her mom, frail but sharp, looked at her with tired eyes. Child, I know things have been hard, she said quietly. But maybe this is your chance to make things better. For you, for others. Tasha nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. I don't want to mess it up. Her mom reached across, squeezed her hand. You're not the first to be scared. But you don't have to do it alone. Tasha finally called David. Their meeting was quiet at first, words careful, like stepping over cracks in the pavement. But with every story shared, the walls came down. David spoke about the war, the pain, and the silence that followed. Tasha shared her struggles, working long hours, caring for her mother, trying to hold her own sanity together. They found an unexpected connection, two people battered by invisible wounds, brought together by one fragile, human moment. Back home, Tasha opened the envelope again. She thought about the anonymous donor, their generosity both a blessing and a reminder. The money wasn't a fix. It was a beginning, and beginnings scared her more than endings ever had. The next morning, she drafted an email to Angela. I'm ready. Let's talk about what comes next. Tasha's journey was no longer just about surviving. It was about choosing how to live. And for the first time in a long time, that choice felt like hope. The morning light spilled softly into Tasha's small apartment, but inside, she felt the heavy weight of a new kind of responsibility pressing on her chest. It wasn't the physical exhaustion from shifts or the constant care of her mother. It was something else, something less visible. She'd said yes to Angela's invitation to join the Homefront Project's outreach efforts, to become a bridge between the veteran community and people like her, people who cared but didn't know how to reach out. When she walked into the modest community center for her first meeting, nerves clawed at her throat. The room smelled faintly of coffee and hope. Around her were veterans with stories written in their eyes, some worn down, some still fighting battles she couldn't see. David was there too. He greeted her with a quiet smile, a silent thanks that went deeper than words. Her first public talk was scheduled within 2 weeks. She'd never spoken to a crowd beyond the hospital break room. But the stakes were different now. In those first speeches, Tasha found her voice raw, honest, sometimes trembling but always real. She spoke about the night at the diner, yes. But more than that, she spoke about pain, the kind that no one sees, the kind she lived with, the kind veterans like David carried. She talked about Black women in nursing, about how often their labor goes unseen, their struggles dismissed. Her story resonated. She saw tears in the audience, felt hands squeeze hers. And through it all, she began to realize that healing wasn't a straight line. It was a messy, beautiful chaos of pain and hope intertwined. But not everyone applauded. Social media comments flickered with skepticism. Why should we trust a stranger? Is this really about helping or self-promotion? Tasha learned quickly that advocacy meant carrying not only others' pain but their doubt, their anger, their frustration. She took it in stride, but it wore on her. One evening, after a long day, she called her mom. "I'm scared," she admitted, voice cracking. Her mother's reply was steady. "Scared means you're about to do something brave. Remember that, baby." Meanwhile, David's recovery was fragile but steady. They grew closer, not just as allies, but as friends bound by shared survival. She met his sister, a fierce woman with a gentle heart, who thanked Tasha for bringing her brother back. Together, they planned a fundraiser for veterans' mental health, aiming to shine a light where there was too much shadow. Back at the hospital, things had changed too. Her co-workers treated her with a new respect, but also a cautious distance. Some wondered if the hero was still the same tired nurse who clocked in every day, who still needed help herself. Tasha felt it, but she kept going. Because this wasn't just about her anymore. The day of the fundraiser arrived. Tasha stood at the podium, looking out over a sea of faces, veterans, nurses, community leaders, strangers touched by a story that was no longer just hers. She took a deep breath and spoke from the heart. "We are all wounded," she said, "in ways visible and invisible. But kindness is a bridge. It's a start. And sometimes, that's enough to save a life." As the applause rose, Tasha knew the journey was far from over. But for the first time, she wasn't walking it alone. After the fundraiser's success, things should have felt easier for Tasha. The community support was overwhelming, and the funds raised would help countless veterans. But beneath the applause and congratulations, a quiet storm was brewing inside her. The public loved the diner nurse, the hero who saved a veteran's life. They wanted speeches, interviews, photos. They wanted the strong, unbreakable Tasha who could inspire millions. But no one was asking about the nights she stayed up worrying about her mother's health, or the exhaustion that gnawed at her after 12-hour shifts. No one saw the weight of expectations pressing down on her shoulders. One evening, Tasha found herself alone in the hospital break room, her hands trembling as she tried to eat a sandwich. Her phone lit up with messages, invitations to speak at conferences, requests for interviews, offers from advocacy groups. She felt overwhelmed. Her friend and coworker, Jasmine, noticed. "Tasha," Jasmine said gently, "you've got to take care of yourself too. You can't pour from an empty cup." Tasha nodded but felt the familiar pull of responsibility. She was afraid that slowing down meant losing the momentum that could change lives. The pressure mounted. A prominent journalist reached out, wanting an exclusive story, something sensational to boost ratings. Tasha hesitated. Would sharing her full story help or hurt? Would it expose her vulnerabilities in a way she wasn't ready for? Meanwhile, David's PTSD episodes returned, more frequent and severe. Tasha felt helpless watching the man she saved struggle again. One night, David called her in tears. "I'm scared I'm losing control," he whispered. "What if I'm always like this?" Tasha's heart broke. She reminded him, "You're not alone. Healing isn't a straight line." But inside, she wondered how she could help him when she barely kept herself together. At home, her mother's health declined, and Tasha juggled hospital visits with her increasing public duties. She felt herself unraveling. One night, after a long shift, she collapsed on her couch, tears streaming. She realized she needed help. The next day, Tasha reached out to a therapist recommended by the hospital's wellness program. For the first time in years, she let someone in. Therapy was hard. It was uncomfortable, but it was also necessary. Tasha began to confront the traumas she'd buried, the systemic racism she faced as a black nurse, the emotional toll of her caregiving, the loneliness of being a single woman striving to hold everything together. Slowly, she learned that strength wasn't just about bearing burdens silently. It was about asking for help. Months later, Tasha stood in front of a small group at a support meeting for caregivers and healthcare workers. Her voice steady, she shared her truth. "I'm not a superhero. I'm just a woman doing her best in a world that often feels like it's against me." The room nodded. In that moment, Tasha found a new kind of courage, the courage to be seen fully, flaws and all. Tasha sat quietly in the community center, the soft hum of voices around her a comforting backdrop. This wasn't the loud applause or flashing cameras from before. This was something deeper, a circle of people who understood what it meant to struggle and to heal. Her journey had brought her here, far from the lonely nights and the diner incident that changed everything. She thought back to that night when she stepped between chaos and compassion, unsure if her small act of kindness would matter. But it did, and it kept mattering. Since then, Tasha had learned the real meaning of strength. It wasn't just about being the hero in a viral video or the black nurse who saved a war veteran. It was about showing up every day in all her messy, imperfect humanity. It was about breaking silence on mental health, especially for veterans and caregivers. It was about fighting the quiet battles of systemic injustice she faced as a black woman in healthcare. And it was about allowing herself to receive kindness, even when it felt like the hardest thing to do. Today, she was leading a workshop on self-care for healthcare workers. As she looked around the room at tired faces, she shared her truth with conviction. Kindness saved me that night at the diner. But kindness also means caring for yourself, asking for help, saying, "I'm not okay." She saw nods, tears, and the spark of hope. Her story was no longer just her own. It was a call to action, a movement. After the workshop, David approached her. "Thank you for being brave enough to share your story," he said softly. "You've helped me find my strength, too." Tasha smiled, the weight in her chest lighter than it had been in years. Her phone buzzed with notifications again. This time, she welcomed the attention with purpose. She picked up her camera and spoke directly to her growing audience. If you've ever felt unseen, overwhelmed, or like your kindness goes unnoticed, this is for you. Remember, strength isn't vulnerability. You're not alone. If Tasha's story inspired you, hit the like button and subscribe for more real stories about resilience, healing, and hope. Share your own experiences in the comments. Let's build a community where kindness and courage thrive.